Oh, today it's going to be juicy. We're going to talk about the topic of how reward based obedience training can damage trust and what to do instead. Stay tuned, it's going to be good. Hi, I'm Kathy Kowalik, and I believe that our dogs connect us to the heart and soul of what really matters in life. So hang out, and we'll take a deep dive into the human-dog connection and explore strategies that will inspire you to create legendary, enlightened partnership with your dog. This is the Enlightened by Dogs podcast. Well, hello and welcome to Enlightened by Dogs. I am your host, Kathy Kowalik, and we are here to explore the power of love, connection, and trust as we create a cooperative relationship with our dogs, our canine family. So thank you so much for tuning in. And in particular, today we're going to talk about we're kind of going to dive a little deeper into the topic of how reward-based obedience training damages trust and why unconditional love and focusing on trust building better lead us to have a cooperative relationship with our dogs. You know, as dog moms, we are culturally conditioned. We can't help it. We're just immersed, right? This is our culture about the importance of training our dogs to obediently perform certain behaviors in order for them and us to have a good life, right? And it seems like a simple enough concept. We offer a reward for good behavior, and our dogs will therefore learn to do what we want, right? I mean, it seems pretty simple and pretty straightforward. But in reality, when our primary relationship is based on a reward-based transactional dynamic, that can have a negative impact on the relationship between us and our dogs and can ultimately end up making cooperation more difficult instead of easier, and also end up making cooperation more unlikely when we really need it. You know, every day we can look around and we see that for many dog families, relying on transactions can lead to a situation where the dog is less likely to cooperate, especially when no reward is available, right? We hear this, you know, especially if we've been around dogs for a long time. If you're a dog professional, it's something we hear all the time, like, my dog won't come if I don't have a treat, for example, just to pull one thing out, right? Or we also see where the dog is less likely to cooperate when there is something else in the environment that is more rewarding than what is being offered for the dog's compliance. You know, and so, you know, squirrels or, you know, someone's playing with a ball or something's more interesting or more stressful, right? In any case, when there's something else in the environment that's more rewarding or perhaps simply more interesting or more attention grabbing, then we're sort of left with this idea of making ourselves more interesting than the environment, more rewarding than the environment. And again, that on the surface, that doesn't seem like such a bad idea. But there are pitfalls that we get sucked into when that is our approach. And I mean, if you're like most of us, you probably experienced something like that yourself, like where, your dog doesn't respond as expected, with your own dog, well, at least a time or two in your life, right? But it's not just the lack of cooperation in those circumstances that's the problem. Maybe the more meaningful thing, the deeper idea here is that this transactional approach actually erodes trust in a relationship. Now, we know through research and studies of social animals that trust between individuals, so trust is given to someone else by the other, right? And so trust develops when an individual feels safe. So we know that, right? That's the thing. And the thing that could be most damaging to trust with our dogs is when we try to distract our dogs from how they really feel. Like we try to distract them from their feelings when they feel unsafe or worried or anxious or stressed in some way. We try to distract them by offering treats or toys or games or play, right? I mean, it can seem like the right thing to do on the surface, but it backfires because all we're really doing is temporarily distracting our dog from how they really feel. And we are thereby unintentionally communicating to our dog that the way they feel is not valid, that we're not accepting how they feel when they communicate that to us through their behavior. It'd be like you telling me that, I don't like being hugged. And my response is, well, let me help you with that. Let me teach you how to like getting hugged. And I whip out, a bag of chocolate bits, and every time, and I gradually and incrementally start touching you and give you a chocolate bit every time I do until I gradually acclimate you to accept a hug. Right? I mean, that's just not what friends do for each other. That's not what people who care for each other do. And when we know that someone is not accepting us for who we are, that our goal is to change how you feel about a thing and not just accept that how you feel about a thing is okay, that's when we really start damaging trust between us and our dogs. And so there's a much better approach to, helping our dogs to navigate life successfully without resorting to transactions. That's what we do. That's what my work is all about, right? We're not damaging that trust and causing our dogs to feel unsafe or that we don't have their back by using transactions. Okay. And so, for example, and you may have heard me talk about this in the past because I think it's just such a clear way of thinking about it. In his TED Talk, Why Good Leaders Make You Feel Safe, Simon Sinek, who is, an author, a speaker, and an expert on good social leadership, he says that trust and cooperation are feelings, not instructions. We can't simply instruct someone to trust us. Like, I can't instruct two people to cooperate. It doesn't work that way, right? And so Simon goes on to tell us, quote, social animals have evolved to form circles of safety where members of the tribe, herd, family group felt safe and they felt like they belonged. The natural response to feeling safe amongst our own is trust and cooperation. And the only variable that matters is inside that circle where leadership matters. It's the leader that sets the tone. When the leader makes the choice to put the safety of those inside the circle first above all else, everyone inside the circle feels safe and like they belong. Remarkable things happen. End quote. And I want to repeat this one thing. The natural response to feeling safe amongst our own is trust and cooperation. And so we could say that when our intention and when we do things, we make choices, we make decisions to help our dogs feel safe, their natural response is to trust us and to cooperate with us. Okay? Makes sense? And so feeling safe leads to mutual trust. Our dogs trust us, and then we trust our dogs, and we certainly trust ourselves. And that's the loop that expands. And so we can't train our dogs to trust us. It just doesn't work like that. What we can do is to be trustworthy in our dog's eyes by being the kind of loving leader that listens to learn from our dog, listens to learn how our dog feels, and then accept how they feel and put what I call safe, calm, and happy as the first and only priority. And I'm thinking about a few years back when one of my students was struggling with her reactive dog. It was really challenging. It was like extra challenging because they lived in a small town where basically everyone let their dogs loose to roam at will. Right? So wherever Deb took her dog, they were likely to encounter off-leash dogs. Now, most were friendly, but not all of them. Some were not friendly at all. Plus, in addition to the roaming dogs, there were also the usual, like some dogs guarding their yards and, running up and down the fence, barking and charging if they got too close. And then there were leash dogs that they were passing sometimes that were, reactive to other dogs. And so they were acting out in frustration. And so all of this combined, there was like no place where it was, good for Deb to go with her dogs. Right. And so Deb, who is an experienced dog trainer, she was already doing like all the things with positive reinforcement, counter conditioning, and doing her best to keep her dog calm. She knows the protocols front and back, and she was doing all the things. And as months turned into years, her dog became more and more reactive. Nothing was working. And finally, this really devoted and savvy dog mom, just like you, that's why you're listening to this. Well, anyway, she found me and my partnership lifestyle method, and she took my advice to heart and started implementing right away. Now, the one thing that Deb focused on more than anything was to be trustworthy, in all caps, in her dog's eyes. She wanted her dog to know, I've got your back. She completely stopped trying to train or condition him to accept other dogs or to be attentive to her. She stopped the look and dismiss. She stopped the all the things that we do as dog trainers and behaviorists to get our dogs to accept. She stopped all of that. And instead, she did the simple thing that I teach you, which is to put trust and feeling safe first. And it paid off very quickly. I mean, within 6 months, they were walking in and around their town with no problem. It was easy. Loose dogs running up to them no longer caused her dog to turn into Cujo. And Deb was actually able to start walking not just her formerly reactive dog, but all 3 of her dogs, even her blind and deaf dog, together out and about in their town. I mean, it was just beautiful to watch this struggling relationship transform into a brilliant partnership. Now, there's another aspect to this discussion today that I want to share with you. And that is, in addition to damaging trust, a reward-based approach for like our baseline foundation relationship. I just want to clarify, I'm not talking about reward-based training of skills, like agility skills or trick training and different types of skills, like dog sport stuff, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about our foundation baseline, how we live together as partners, our foundation relationship, how we relate to one another, how we are together, how we live together, all that stuff that happens when we're not training, okay? And so in addition to damaging trust, a reward-based approach can also create even greater power imbalances than we already have with our dog, just by the nature of human and dog in modern society, human-based society. I mean, the power imbalance in our relationship with our dogs is vast. I mean, think about it. We control like every solitary aspect and resource in their lives. And transactional dog training, obedience training reinforces this imbalance, and it encourages us to use power, this power imbalance and control, as the model of how we relate to our dogs. But just because things have always been this way doesn't mean they have to stay that way. I mean, it's just that power imbalance of like, you do this and you get what you want. That's what I'm talking about. And on the other hand, when a relationship is based on trust, obedience training is just simply not necessary, because the dog and their human are learning to work together toward a shared goal. And our dogs are motivated to cooperate with us because they trust us, not because they are being rewarded for performing a behavior. This creates this mutual trust and cooperation, creates a more natural, fluid dynamic that allows us to work together as a team with our dogs, as partners in our everyday life. And in the words of Dr. Susan Friedman, quote, "A trusting relationship is the key to successful animal companionship," end quote. Now, the other thing that I want to call out is that living under constant expectations of obedience and needing to be obedience and expecting obedience has negative effects on both parties, on both sides of that, right? When we control every aspect of our dog's lives, we often easily, without intention, end up slipping into deprivation tactics. Now, it might sound positive, But when our dogs are expected to perform a behavior or to obediently respond to our cued request, no matter how they feel, that can cause some pretty serious problems. And we know that this can lead to increased stress and anxiety. It erodes trust and it decreases confidence. Now, we want our dogs to feel safe, calm, and happy, not stressed and anxious, needing to perform and to comply so much of their life. And we want that for us too, right? And this is why it's so important to focus on creating a partnership based on trust and love and connection rather than on obedience and rewards. We are, and you could quote me on this, we are culturally conditioned to believe that dogs aren't capable of choosing to be loving, playful, well-behaved, cooperative partners without being paid to do so. That is simply not true. End quote, Kathy Kowalik. So, my dear dog moms, it's beyond time to reconsider our approach and to focus on building a partnership based on unconditional love, connection, and trust. And I hope that you will join me in this endeavor. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Enlightened by Dogs. I hope that you have found it inspiring. And as always, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know how you are using these ideas in your own family with your own dogs. And share this episode with a friend. It would be amazing. I'd love for you to help me spread the word about living in partnership with cooperation, not obedience. All right, that's it for today. Until next time, be brilliant. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye for now. Thanks so much for listening. And hey, if you would like to work with me so that I can help you discover the missing pieces you need so that you and your dog can finally be happy and enjoy life together, then head on over to dancingheartsdogacademy.com and request your invitation to join us in the Brilliant Partners Academy when the doors open for the next enrollment. See you next time, and remember, a brilliant partnership with your dog makes your whole life brilliant.